Hi, this is Sean McGill from PDA247, and this is the latest and greatest from Sony Ericsson, the Xperia X1. Now this has been a long time coming. It was initially announced back in February, and it's only really hit the market in the last few days to quite a fanfare, and so far relatively positive reviews. So let's have a quick look at what comes in the box and what it's actually like to play with in the first few minutes. The box is relatively plain actually. It's considering it's made by HTC, there's none of the fanfare and the clever little parts that you tend to get with an HTC made device or branded device. Here we have the Xperia itself, and we'll look at that more in a moment. A few standard accessories, a USB sync and charging cable which plugs into a standard 3-prong plug, a spare stylus. The stylus is not telescopic, but it's quite a good length and just about right, I would say, for most hands. And a set of headphones, 3.5mm jack, and a set of buds to make sure that it will fit into the majority of ears. If you're not a fan of in-ear headphones, you may not want to go for these. And obviously with a 3.0mm jack you can basically use any headphones you like anyway. Finally, and this is quite quirky actually, you've got a little support card, an important information brochure, an Opera Mobile 9.5 brochure, software CD. You've got a brochure for browsing the web and messaging. You've got another one for multimedia. You've then got one for getting started, and finally one for panels. So, excuse me, in this era of cutting down on paper, I'm not really sure if that's a good idea or not, although I guess it's no larger than one standard manual. And that's it. That's basically the entire packaging of the X1. It's got just about everything you need, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's you might tend to expect a little bit more for a phone that costs £500. Now if we look at the X1 in closed form, we compare it to something like the BlackBerry Bold. As you can see, there's quite a difference in width. Roughly, actually the Bold is slightly higher, and the X1 is somewhat thicker. Compared to a standard mobile phone, this is a very small Nokia 5310. Now as you can see, even compared to that, it's not that much larger, but there's certainly a big difference when you look at the depth of the phone. So you've got your buttons below the screen, which are all triangular. Excuse the coughing, I've got a bit of a cold. The buttons are triangular and not easy to use on first play, but after a while they become somewhat familiar. You've got a camera button here, a volume button which is quite flush, on-off button, 3.5mm jack, mini USB sync and charge port, and that's basically it. It's an interesting design. Looking at it there from the back, it looks like one of the larger Glowfish models. The camera housing is quite industrial, as is most of the surround. From the front, the aforementioned triangular buttons are quite Nokia. This is quite Sony Ericsson, and it really does seem to steal parts from many other phones we've seen in the past. Strangely, it works. All of this clash of materials actually produces a very nice looking device. It's quite retro in some ways, with the brushed steel backing of the keyboard. The keyboard itself is quite a large footprint, but it's not great. There's not a lot of travel. The keys themselves don't give much tactile feedback, which is a bit of a shame. Now, let's have a look at how well it works. Panels is the main interface that comes with it, and there's been a lot of talk about panels and how it works. As you can see here, there's lots of swishing about and you effectively go into a different way of presenting the information for each separate panel. I'm going to talk more about it in the actual review. My first impression of panels is that it's yet another effort, a bit like HTC's TouchFlow, that does little more than add a gloss over Windows Mobile. At times it's quite slow, as you can see here. Although that's performing fairly well, that there is an example of what happens. It stutters. Phones shouldn't do that. When you're actually in a panel, strangely enough, like a standard today screen panel, things move along super fast, have no real issues at all. Yet swapping from landscape to portrait within the panels is not good. As you can see there, that's immediate. So once again, as nice as panels is, my first thought would probably be to not use it, but maybe a software change will fix that. I've had a quick look at the media capabilities, and they're relatively impressive. The sound quality is quite good. It's a little flat. It's not on the level of the Bold, or not really even on the level of an iPhone or an iPod, but it isn't dreadful. Video playback is quite good.